Hi, welcome to Mindful Conversations. My name's Greg Dwyer. My guest today is Rich Sear. Rich, thanks for being on the broadcast.
Glad to be back.
So you're an author,
Yep.
You've done stand-up, and you're a radio host. How did you get involved in show business?
Sort of fell right into it.
Okay.
I started, not really, years ago. When I graduated high school, I wanted to be in radio, so I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was biggest waste of time because what happened
Was it really?
Yeah, all they do is they really don't care what happens to you, all they want is your money.
Okay.
And then
You're breaking my heart. Did you learn anything?
No, and I'll tell you why. I mean, basically, you're sitting in a classroom saying, this is what you would do, this is what you would do, this is what you do. So I became friends with I used to go to a lot of the live lunch luau's back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
And I became friends with all the DJs at WHCM, which is now The River.
All right.
So they said, well, when you graduate, come see what a real radio station looks like. I became an intern. I learned more in a week than I did the 3-month course.
No
and it was
way.
free.
Oh my goodness.
So I could say that some people might get something out of the school. I personally didn't.
Okay.
I learned more of actually being there because they said, learn by doing.
Right.
And that's they actually let me run the board. They let me, record commercials for them. And so I started off doing that. I was an intern for several years. Well, no, about a year, and then there was an opening in an AM station in Waterbury, WWCO, your hometown favorite.
You have a radio voice. I've been told I have a radio voice too. A voice for radio, and that means you're ugly. And I'm like, you're not ugly, I'm not ugly. But people have said that to me. They go, you have such a sexy voice. And I'm like, really?
Thanks, Mom.
That's funny.
Dad, will you stop saying that? It's freaking me out.
So, on-the-job training is better than a classroom?
Yes, for me it was. Because I took the exam, I got a 70. I did where I actually did it, a 99. So when I'm actually doing it, I learned so much more. And I loved it. I did radio from 92 to 97. And I realized, I'm like, there's not really a way to get money in there unless you're the morning guy or the afternoon. On the way to work, or the afternoon jock on the way home from work.
Why is that?
Because they get paid the most because that's when people are listening to the radio the most, on the way to work or on the way home. Now it's completely different because, it's satellite radio, streaming. Podcasts, yeah. But it was funny because I started radio in 92 and they told me, oh, you're getting into radio just at the wrong time.
Why?
Because
Why did they say that?
At that time, these big companies were buying out smaller stations. Like Infinity Broadcasting was buying out the smaller ones, so they would just simulcast all their major shows like Imus, Howard Stern. This was in the 90s, that's why I'm mentioning these names.
Yeah, sure.
Tom Leykis, G. Gordon Liddy. I remember these are all the shows that were on some of the stations I worked at. Then on the weekend I would have my own show. But I think it's funny, I went on one of these radio stations now, The Whale, which used to be WDRC.
Right.
And I was telling them when I was in radio, oh, you were in radio at the good time. So I think it's funny how it's put into perspective. When I first got there in the 90s, oh boy, you missed all the fun times. Now I'm going back to oh, I wish I was in radio when you were in radio. Okay. So it's completely different, but I had such a great time, learned a lot. But now I love the fact that you can, with podcasts, you can be heard all over the world. Right.
I have a podcast. You have a podcast too? Or are you doing both? Okay.
I did, but that sort of fell apart. But now I have a show, which is on 5 different stations.
Right.
I'm simulcast, yes. It's called Nutmeg Chatter.
Okay.
Presents The Claw's Corner.
The Claw's Corner. Now, you've interviewed some really famous people on those podcasts years ago, right? Like, who have you interviewed?
Jeffrey Kramer from Jaws, who played Deputy Hendricks. Yep. I did, I love horror movies, which we talked about before. So an actress from Evil Dead, Linda Day George, which some people may not know that name, but if they look her up, she's been in everything. The interview I did with her, we talked about her acting with John Wayne, Bruce Lee.
Wow.
Her acting, she got her start in Mission Impossible, the original with Peter Graves. Peter Graves was her acting mentor.
What do you think it takes to be in television or radio or in show business? What do you think some of the characteristics are, besides being a little off? Because I think you have to be a little off. You know what I mean?
One of my instructors said it perfectly. 90% attitude, 10% talent. He goes, turn on the radio right now, you're going to hear 75 to 80% people, they're horrible.
They are?
But just have the attitude.
Okay.
Go in there, say I'm the best, and know that. Because if you go in there saying, oh, I don't know, it's more of just going in there and
Posture.
Yeah.
It's this idea that I'm going to do this, and
Yeah.
I remember my first television show, which was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and it was over in Channel 5 in Litchfield. I was so nervous I couldn't even say my name right. And now I don't care. Like, I really don't care. Like, whatever happens, happens. No one's watching anyway, kind of thing. And we're going to learn something and have
But even
fun.
if they are, who cares?
Right. What do you care if people like you or don't like you?
No, exactly.
Yeah,
and I used to always say that too when I did stand-up comedy for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Stand up. How did you get involved in that?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great story.
All right. So over the years, somebody always says, why every time I see you, you're doing something different? I said, why not? I have many interests. Why not explore all the different interests that I have? So I wrote a pilot for a TV show. My friends and I went down to New York to try and pitch it.
Did it work?
No, didn't work. But
what did you learn from that experience, pitching a TV pilot?
Basically, just like what they're looking for. I mean, this was before reality shows.
Oh.
This was in the early. Well, maybe it was. I think Survivor was out.
Okay.
So maybe that was the start of it. But I think they were just what they were looking for and what kind of sitcoms. I went to 5 different television companies. I mean, it was like Kevin Smith had a company. I can't remember one. There was a rapper that had a company, but then some of the bigger ones, which I can't remember now. This was I want to say 1999, 2000.
Okay.
And talking to them, what they were looking for, what they liked, and it brought me back to my radio days because when I made a tape, they said, the more no's get you closer to a yes.
Yeah, no, yes. And it's the same thing with sales. That's all it is,
and
really.
that's what it was. That's what I learned the most too. It's like, just because somebody doesn't like it here, go to the next one, they're going to love it.
And you really have to be concise with your pitch, as if it's a movie or a play or whatever you're doing, television pilot. Yeah. Like, you can't just go on and on for 25 minutes. You have to get that down really tight so they know who the character is, what the conflict. I mean, let's face it.
Your pitch. That was what they call that. Not the elevator speech. It's the first line is going to sell the sitcom.
That's it. I mean, when you think of Star Wars, it's like 3 sentences or 4 sentences. If you go on for 25 minutes, their eyes glass over, or glaze over. Forget it. You're done. Yeah. You got to get their attention. It's got to be sexy. It's got to sell. It's got to make them money.
Yeah, I think I had 20 minutes with each company.
That long?
Yeah.
Did you insist to be the lead character?
Yes.
You did not.
It was called.
No, you didn't.
You
had the guts to do that?
Yeah.
To pitch it and say, I want to be the star?
Well, it was based on me in a way.
Shameless.
It was called. I am shameless. I'm a shameless promoter. P.T. Barnum.
Okay, so what happened?
No, it was called The Prophet and the Healer. I was in the sitcom.
Was
healer.
It a comedy?
Yes.
It had to be.
I was the healer that couldn't even heal myself.
Reminds me of Mork and Mindy.
Well, I am a big Robin Williams fan, but I wasn't even thinking of that at the time. I was just thinking about, let me do something funny. And I always thought that would be funny. It's like, I'm the healer, and I can't even heal myself. I was like, come on. And and then my friend was the prophet who just really couldn't get anything right.
So you go from that, and then you do stand-up. Where are some of the places, the open mics? What did you do?
Oh, yeah. Well, from there, I was doing a documentary with a friend, the same friend, and that fell through. So from there, my friend said, I always wanted to try stand-up comedy. I said, I'll go down, I'll support you.
Okay.
There's an open mic at the Funny Bone in Manchester.
No way. What do you get, 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
5.
5 minutes.
Which is funny because when you first do it, 5 minutes seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
But then I did it for 4 years, over 400 shows. 5 minutes, I'm basically just getting on stage saying my name.
Yeah, well, when you come and do my opening, we have to pull you off the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we give you 15 minutes, and it's like, get this guy off the stage. He needs his own act. Get his own gigs.
I'm working
you know
on
what
it.
I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know. Well, I don't even realize that. Pay attention to the time. That's what it is. There's so many things to talk about, and when I'm in front of an audience, I feed off of the audience, and that's what was so great about comedy.
Right. You get instant. Feedback. You know what's going on.
Instant feedback. Yeah. Forget about the gratification. Like we both said, who cares if they like you or not? I used to always say, I could have an audience of 100. Everybody else could be sitting there like this. One person's laughing. To me, that was a successful night.
What about hecklers? You ever engage them?
Sometimes. The reason is because if I think, all right, I'm going to engage this heckler, I'll have a brain freeze.
That's a risk. That's a risk. It's a big risk.
I have to just let it happen naturally.
Right.
Which has happened in the past, and then they started laughing, and then we were going back and forth. I was supposed to do a 20-minute set. I ended up doing 50 minutes.
No way.
And 25 minutes was me going back and forth. They weren't being mean or they weren't being rude. They was just going back and forth, having fun.
Right.
And so, if I ever said, because I know people would put in there like, where I'm going to do this joke. All right, for 10 minutes, I'm going to talk to the audience. If I ever did that,
wow.
I would be, all right, what am I going to talk about? I would, but if I don't think about it, it just comes out naturally. It's much more genuine. It's much more fun.
I saw a comedian the other day on YouTube where he was actually doing his set, but then he started talking to the audience, and he goes, "Women, what do you don't like about men? And women, men, what don't you like about women?" And they were serving him questions and answers, and he's having a conversation with an audience, and he's bouncing them back. And I'm thinking, I think it was Sinbad, and I could not believe that he had the ability to play that game. You know, I'm sure he had a routine. He went right back to it.
Well, no, but also, I've seen Howie Mandel many times. I've seen Robin Williams several times.
Live?
Live, yeah.
No way.
At the Oakdale twice.
Wow.
But what I learned from them was that what seems off the cuff is already pre-planned. They have like jokes already in their head.
Oh, sure.
So if they have a heckler, they're gonna. And I saw him twice, and I said, "Wait, I just saw that joke," and it was funny because Howie Mandel. This was back in the '80s when he was still. I mean, I think he has a game show now, but I mean, back in the '80s, he was, St. Elsewhere, and he was a big-time comedian. And the first show I saw, there was this fly going around. He did this 20-minute thing on the fly. My friend saw the second show, and the next day at work, she goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe how he does this. He came right off the top of his head. He had a 20-minute thing about a fly." So wait a minute, I started telling her the jokes.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't.
But see, what the magic, the beauty is making it seem like right now we have rehearsed this, we've written out this script, and it sounds like we're just doing it off the cuff.
I wanted to see if you can move your head because I can't read the cue cards. All right, yes, I'm having a great time on the show.
I told you to memorize the script,
No,
Rich.
I didn't have time.
Well, here's the deal. I was watching Steve Martin on the Master Class.
He's the best.
He is the best. I love him. I'm a big fan. And I got to see him last year at Foxwoods. I think
With Martin Short?
Yeah, I actually think it was this year. Yeah, did you go?
No, I saw that they had the special on HBO.
I saw the special on HBO. That's a great point. And then I went to see it live. Identical.
Yep.
Little tweaks. So what Steve Martin was talking about in the Masterclass, are you familiar with masterclass.com?
Yeah.
So you go on there, you can watch comedians, you can watch teachers how to cook food, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to learn, right? Photography. And he said that you go out and you use the set or you do the set, and then you figure out what gets a laugh, and then you go back and you're constantly editing.
Yes.
And on Letterman, he was interviewing Ellen, right? And she has an hour show, stand-up show. Mm-hmm. And Dave asked her, he said, "How long had you put into the whole stand-up? How long did it take you to do it?" She says 7 months. Mm-hmm. 7 months. To rewrite it, to write it, and I'm thinking to myself, Ellen is not the only editor on this.
No.
I'm thinking to myself, we see a comedian or we see a performer get up and do something, and we go, "That's amazing." You don't realize all the time behind the scenes that goes into it.
Exactly.
That most people think, "Oh, wow, the guy's he's brilliant."
Yeah.
And
That's why I used to laugh because, but Connecticut is such a small scene. I mean, I did Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, Tennessee. I played all over the place. But you see a lot of the comedians, and everybody's like, "Oh, no, you got to change your set. You got to change your set." People don't realize it takes, like you said, years to get a good 5-10 minutes perfect. And you got to do it over and over and over again. So like people would try to change their set every 2 months just to worry about the people that were in the audience, which are comedians that could care less about your set. They're more worried about their set.
Right, exactly.
So for me, I would do it over, and like you just said, I would practice in my living room, going over and over again. Then I would try it live, and if it didn't work, I'd try something different. If it did work, I'd remember that and come back to it. So yeah, I never saw the master class, but that's how I worked. And
it's a long process.
It's a long process, but it's worth it when the end result is you make people laugh.
Do you know Darren Brown? He's in New York right now. He does a show called The Secret or Secret. He's a mentalist. He's a mentalist.
The book, The Secret?
No, it has nothing to do with that, but the name of his show is called The Secret. And Darren Brown is an actor. He's a mentalist or a magician, but he comes out and he sits in a chair and he reads his script from the inside, not from the script. There's no teleprompter or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he just speaks to the audience, and it's amazing. I've seen him twice, a couple years ago, and then I saw him just recently. And it's amazing to watch him because he's saying something here, then he's saying something here, and everything. Even some of the mistakes, like I won't give it away, but there's a part in the show where he drops something, and it's on purpose. It's all on purpose. And you're thinking, "Oh, that's terrible that he dropped that," and it's all rehearsed, but in such a way that you think it's not rehearsed.
Well, that's the genius of the people who are successful at that, because they make it seem like they're doing it off the top of their head, or or it's an accident, and it's really not. It's really part of the show, and you're just playing. It's like a good magician.
Yeah. Well, you watch Robin Williams, or you watch who are some of your favorite comedians?
George Carlin was my all-time favorite. Which George Carlin is the exact opposite. He had everything rehearsed. He never ever did anything off the cuff, and I've seen many interviews with him. And somebody brought up a great point about him. They said, if you watch George Carlin, he's hilarious. If you actually take his words and have somebody else go up on stage and read it, it makes a great essay. Like his later years.
He's a smart guy.
He's a very smart guy.
He was kind of into the conspiracy theory towards the end, don't you think?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think he was ahead of his time, which meaning like in 1999, he had a special called You Are All Diseased. He said, what's going to be next? Anthrax in the water. And that happened in 2001, 2002. And they made another comment about churches burning. That happened a couple of years later. So I don't think he was really into conspiracy theories. He was more ahead of his time, like what might happen. He was talking about airport. He had a whole bit about airport security, and then 2 years later, 9/11 happened. I mean, it's almost eerie how much he predicted.
Didn't he talk about they don't care about you?
We talked about the government in general.
Yeah, he talked about the government and how, hey, this is what's really going on. I mean, I thought it was brilliant. And
no, it is. Yeah, but I don't think he was really into conspiracy theories or anything. He was just talking about, he goes like this, the government doesn't really care about you. All they care about is their money, their house, their cars. They don't care about what you're doing. So that's the extent of what he did with the government. But
But if you watch comedians, if you watch actors, if you watch people that are in show business, you can't really separate their political agenda or their messaging from their art. Like art and their message is kind of tied together. As a comedian, you can say things that are funny that you couldn't get away with if you got up publicly and said it. The beauty of the gesture, that goes back with the king, we're talking Charlemagne's time and thousands of years ago, is that the jester was a clown. But he could get away with telling the king things that no one else could ever say because he said it with a smile on his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, because his facial expressions were hilarious, and that's what made the jokes funny. Because if you read the words, it can be like, as I mentioned before, a great essay on the climate of the world right now. But then when he says it, he makes all these faces, and people are laughing. So I actually am one of the few people that liked the later years of George Carlin. Than more the. I mean, I love the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. I love the all the different commercials he used to do, and he had like a news section in the '70s. Because I grew up. My father had his records back in the 70s, so I saw him every single year from like 82 all the way up until he died in 2008.
Wow. My first connection with a stand-up comedian was Jay Leno and David Letterman. And I went out to Burbank and I saw Jay, and he came out before the show and signed autographs. He was really nice. And then I remember being in graduate school out in Missouri, and I miss New York, So I'm turning on the television. It had to be the late 80s, early 90s, and I'm seeing Letterman. And he's acting like a crazy guy, And this is the time of Tom Snyder and the Today Show. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's making fun of show business. He's making fun of life. He's not taking any of it seriously.
Which I loved.
I loved. And he made it sound like this is nuts. And he didn't take any of it seriously. And I think he set a standard for all these other comedians that came after him.
And I'm sure you know that Johnny Carson did not want Jay Leno. He did not think Jay Leno was ready for the Tonight Show. He wanted Letterman. Johnny Carson and Fred DiCorva, or
I don't know him.
He's the producer of The Tonight Show.
Oh yeah.
They both wanted Letterman, but I mean, I think it worked out very well for Letterman. He went to CBS and got
and it worked out for me too. I got to be on Letterman.
Yes.
I'll never forget. It was 1995, and he pulls me out of the audience, and 6 million people see me. Did you read The Late Shift? Did you read that book with
No, but you know what's funny? I never saw that. I did see the movie.
You saw the movie. I read the book.
Yeah, and it's funny about the movie is the actor that played Jay Leno I interviewed on my podcast.
No way.
The Claus Corner, Daniel Roebuck. He played Jay Leno, and I guess Jay Leno contacted him and said, that is the best impression of me I've ever seen.
Wow. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And I think Letterman, I don't know him, but he seems like he's matured, and he's different. It's like he's comfortable in his own skin now.
I think for years. I mean, he always jokes about like how uncomfortable he is being in front of the camera. But I think also I've talked to some people that were interviewed by him, and they said he was very standoffish.
Oh, he was. I knew people that worked for him. Yeah, different.
And they said, like, as soon as the camera was off, he wouldn't even talk to you, wouldn't say hi to you, wouldn't just have his hair done, get his makeup ready, and then and then he'd start being your best friend again on the air. So he was not really the personality you see on TV.
Right. Well,
which I think Leno was.
Leno, I tell you, when Leno came out before the show, he actually warmed up the audience, and he was really there. Dave would come out 2 seconds before, hey, everybody, and just go into it. And I'll never forget the day he comes on television and he has his great confession. I'll never forget the day of 9/11 when he was, So talk about this book. We literally have 5 minutes left.
Alrighty.
So tell me how you became an author.
Okay, well, that's another thing.
Amazing. It's amazing what you can do.
Like I said, I just fall into a lot of things, and I'm always, as I say in my motivational speeches, never give up. I just like to do different things, and the worst I say, well, why not?
Yeah.
So I was doing a motivational speech for the Abilities Beyond. It's an organization where and you're going to be talking
I'll
there.
be speaking there next year.
Yep.
Yes.
So I was speaking there, and I was telling them, my story, and I said, what do you want to do? And she said, I would love to be a writer. I said, well, what's stopping you?
Right. That's a
so,
great question.
Yeah, we started talking, and then I even mentioned, I said, I would love to get back into writing. I used to write when I was little, and she said, well, what are you waiting for? I said, aha. She gets me back with my own words. So she told me about this app called Wattpad, WATTPAD.
Okay.
I started writing stories on there, and you could tell how many people are reading it. So the first one did very well. I wrote a second one that did very well. And my friend, who's it's Rayor Publishing, RAYOR, if you have any interest, look it up, and he'd be more than happy to publish your book. But he says, Rich, I'd love to publish your book. I said, all right. You don't have to twist my arm. So I sent him all the stories from Wattpad, and then it's on Amazon. I had a book signing at Barnes & Noble in West Hartford. They said it was the biggest local author book signing they ever had. I sold 20 books, and I ran out.
Wow.
They said most local authors sell 2, 3 at the most.
Most authors in general, they only sell, I don't know, like maybe 200 books in their whole life.
Yeah.
The fact that you're a promoter, I mean, look at you. You got this on your mug. Who did your mug, by the way? Who did the artwork?
That one was done by, oh my God, where's it? It's a website where you can get cards done.
Oh, okay, so you just did it online.
That one I did online, yeah.
Okay.
This one, but I also have hoodies for sale, and I also have shirts.
You didn't bring them tonight, did you?
No, I forgot. I was on my way here.
We're not going to sell anything on public television.
No, we cannot. No. I'm not trying to. I
just
want to tell you about it.
If people want to get a hold of you, just to harass you,
I welcome it.
How would they find you?
Rich Cyr, RICHCYR on Facebook.
Okay.
Or you could do Rich the Claw Cyr on Instagram or Twitter.
What do you like best? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook?
Facebook, without a doubt.
Why?
Call me like the old guy in the room, but to me, Facebook works the best. I don't like Twitter where you have like how many different, that's Twitter, you have so many.
You only have so many characters,
yeah. I don't know, Facebook, makes it so much easier for me like to post my videos.
Right.
Post it, and I just like where I could share it to like so many different groups I belong to. Like I belong to Promote and Share, Promote Yourself, and all these different groups, build your own enterprise. So I mean, I belong to different groups, and I put that on there, and people get in contact. With Instagram, it doesn't seem like I don't really have the following I do on Facebook. So
okay, so you're going to have me on the radio show.
Yes.
Maybe we'll do it this year or next year, and then how are we going to get the word out? We're just going to send it on Facebook and do that.
Yeah. So what I do is I record it first. It's called Nutmeg Chatter. Presents the Claw's Corner. I record it, and then it's on 5 different radio stations. The one station I know I'm on is WAPJ, where we record this show. It's in Torrington. It's on at 1:30 p.m. every Sunday. Okay. Right after another show I do called Nutmeg Junction.
Wow.
I'm trying to fit it all in here within 5 minutes.
When do you sleep?
I do not.
You don't sleep. I've run into a lot of people that are very passionate about what they do, and they don't sleep. I had a guy out in Texas years ago say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, all you have to do is work a half a day. And I go, what does that mean, a half a day? He goes, a half a day means 12 hours. 12 hours. Like most people, 9 to 5, and they're done. They live for the weekends. But if you're writing a book, or you're doing stand-up, or you're going to be an entrepreneur, or you're doing a lecture like the one I do, you're always thinking about how can you push it out, how can you make it happen, and you're never thinking, okay, now I'm not working. You're always working.
Yeah, there's always something going on, and to me this is fun, so it doesn't seem like I'm working, but while I'm doing this I'm having fun, and getting it done. I like that, having fun and getting it done.
Why don't you make like a bumper sticker?
I know.
That's wonderful.
But so there's always something to do. So coming up right now, I'm just more been concentrating on the radio show that I'm doing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have you as a guest. I have some other people.
Excellent.
You could find it on Nutmeg Chatter on Facebook. So
Okay.
that's another way you can promote. And then all the older episodes that I've done are already on there. Have
Nice.
new ones coming up.
Rich, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show. You were my first guest, and you're my last guest. So if you have a story, if you know someone that has a story, would like to come on Mindful Conversations After Hours, just contact me at gregdewire.com. I'd love to talk with you, and we would give the audience something to think about. Rich, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks again.
All right, man.